We're live and on the air. I love it. I love it. Well, thanks everybody for joining and Happy New Year. 2021 is already upon us, and here we are, the end of January. I know you missed our meetings. I'm glad to get back together again, and I've got the bi-weekly cadence calendars willing, reestablished out there. Hopefully, you all have that information, so it should be bi-weekly. And I did put some agenda topics together, try and keep my act together here on this stuff. So the agenda topics I had was to see our wonderful Adam, Mitch, and Bill team were working on C4 diagrams. And I just noticed that Mitch snuck in another commit. Love him, love him. Just before I got here this morning. And then I wanted to go through the architecture document and talk a little bit about some of the reviews I had so far and talk a little bit about next steps. And then if you noticed, I put in the email some topics I came across as I was doing the document that said, we probably want to discuss how we want to proceed this year and what we want to focus on. Because there's a few things in there that I think are very key that we just haven't had time to talk about. So anyway, we'll talk about that. And then I think, JK, you had a thing at the end you wanted to ask about for the group. So I think that's everything on the agenda. Of course, we'll take more if anybody's interested. But that's kind of what I had to get started. Any comments?
Sounds great to me.
Okay, great. All right, so my smart triumvirate of Mitch, Bill, and Adam. Any of you guys want to kind of? I know you've been doing some work on the C4 diagrams. I saw Mitch just did another commit on it. Do you guys want to kind of get us up to speed with where you're at?
Yeah, let me share my screen. I'll show you what the diagrams look like on this branch called Part 3 in French. No, I'm not. Let's see. Well, maybe I'll give it a shot. C4 diagrams, troisième partie. I'm sure I just butchered the heck out of that, but I don't care.
Close
You got to
enough.
try, right?
Yeah,
Sounds good.
Yeah, it's good to me.
Okay, so this is if you're not aware, so this is I forked the Open Cybersecurity documentation repo and into my personal repo, and we've been working on this branch here. There is one, and currently only one, pull request, which is this one right here, which is what we're going to be talking about today. Just going over it real quickly. Adam and Bill and I we've met, 3 or 4 times since we last did this, with a variety of efforts here to try and get these images whipped into shape. Again, quick overview. The intention of these images, ideally, is to replace some of the other images we have. Not that they're bad, just that we're trying to get some consistency across how we represent stuff.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, the ones that you see here. Can folks see my screen, by the way?
Yes.
Mitch,
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, great. So the interesting thing about draw.io, or maybe not so interesting, or SVGs for that matter, you can't really diff them. They're not particularly fun to look at. Here. So, for example, SVG is a bunch of XML and so on. So the only way I can really show you what's going on in these, and that you could call this a weakness to some degree, but is to actually show you the images and to talk to what has changed here. So I'm going to do that very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So if you recall, we're using the C4 model. There's actually only 3 C's. There is the context diagram, starting at the very highest level, going to a container. Then lower than that, we're going to components. What's interesting in the last time that we've talked, so what's interesting in this PR is we've added a lot more text. The C4 model sort of emphasizes a lot of descriptive terms in here. And I'm trying to get to a place where these are, you can almost read your way through this stuff.
Right.
And so things, the most recent commit, for instance, and this was based on actually a review that we did during one of our meetings. I just had OpenDXL here, and I expanded that to refer to OpenDXL ontology because, well, the OCA, we only really have our participation with respect to OpenDXL is with respect to the ontology. So I was going to be kind of narrow the scope a little bit there in terms of terminology. I want to come back to this as well as an issue. I want to raise an issue about something, the OpenDXL ontology business in a moment. So more descriptions on the connectors, on the relationships here, more descriptions on what these things represent. So you can see there's a lot more text there. As you dive down, the way this model works, we have got, so in this next bit here, we're going to focus on the posture assessment system. So we still have these two. So this next diagram shows the top two still in place as is. And we're starting to dig into what this component diagram looks like for posture assessment. Again, more text and so forth. Unfortunately here, this is a little bit tough to read, so I wish that would be better. Anyhow, continuing on, so trying to get there. What you don't see here, well, there's some labels for the diagrams as well, some of this as well. I'm trying to be a good citizen and not have diagrams that don't have rich with context, so that they happen to be outside of this. And finally, again, more descriptors and so forth. And so that's I will stop there and let you ask. Well, actually, sorry, I do have one other bit. There are two context diagrams here. There's one for the collector components and there's one for the manager components. So you can see if you were to open the draw.io, there's actually tabs, much like you see in a Outlook, or not Outlook, like you'll see in a spreadsheet. So if you were to look at this in draw.io, you'd see two tabs, one for this image, the collector component diagram, and another one for the manager component diagram. But I've separated them out as separate images so you don't have that. Now I'll stop.
So are you saying, I might have missed a little bit. So are you saying that the C4 generate SVGs, which then putting in draw.io? Or because this isn't draw.io, right? This is in the C4 notation, right?
Correct. So I'll give you, here's how the process works. Draw.io files are in the, here I am using my handy Emacs. You can see, right, so the draw.io files are checked in. They are these, XML files. I opened up the draw.io application on a web browser, so draw.io, like so. And then you can open up files this way. You can say, hey, open up an existing diagram on this device, et cetera, et cetera. You can see, like, you get to basically open up the file. Let's see, let me do this. Let's see a documentation. Let's just take a look at the container diagram. Oh, no, let's look into the components diagram because that one's got the most interesting here. Components, yeah. So you open that up and Bob's your uncle and you're in. So, and there's these two tabs down below if you can see, right? So I might make some changes to this, like, I might perhaps provide hey, this doesn't have, bad on me, this doesn't have a title. So this should be the cancel that. SCAP, collector, or no, this is the manager component. Does this answer your question?
I
And then
So-
wait, one more
yeah,
thing.
go ahead.
So yeah, so I save that, right? I can click on this and it saves save changes, and it puts in a download folder, and then I have to go do this manually too. Export as an SVG, export, download, and so forth, and it downloads and so on, and I have to move things around, and that is the actual process. It's not terribly elegant from an editing standpoint. And then what you're seeing here is I've put together Markdown that refers to the SVG images, and that's how this is rendering here. So there's all the mechanics.
Okay. So, okay, I get it now. So, for some reason, I thought that C4 was like had a tool or something. But it's just a data modeling concept that we're using.
Correct. So if you look at the C4 link, so I'm going to go visit that right now. You're right. Yes, it's a model, and there's this whole idea of how it works. And here's this 4 C's: context, containers, components, and code. We're not talking about. I usually stop at code, or before code, that is. And so on. And this has exactly the model that organizes how you should do your diagrams consistently. And yes, turns out, of course, the author of this, he has come up with a tool. I'm going to make you dizzy scrolling, so just look away for a moment. There is, in fact, some tooling for this. So you can use, he has authored this thing called Structurizer. You can look back now. Structurizer, there's these other tools. Looks like even, modeling tools. So Structurizer, you can model things in code.
So there's Draw.io.
Yep.
Yes. So, yes. And what you'll note, this has also changed since last time, is that when we were looking at these, let me go back at this. go visit that. Yeah, this was probably also a change, perhaps, as you may have noted. There used to be links that you could click on here, and there are integrations between GitHub and Draw.io, and I got rid of that because it was hard to manage the references. So if you're doing a pull request in one place, and then you want to move it to a different repo, that the URLs are different, and that I don't have the permissions to also make the GitHub repo documents to make Draw.io. And there's a bunch of authorization and authentication. Well,
Yeah, I remember the
authorization.
links kept breaking. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so I got rid of that, and there was a way to click on them, and you could jump right into Draw.io. It was super slick, but it was also super fragile.
Yes.
Got it. No, that makes sense. Yeah, and that can be fragile. Well, and this whole page is a GitHub page, right? So it's
Yep.
pretty obvious
Just a
if
README
someone
MD.
wants to edit it.
Yep.
Yeah, if someone wants to. And I think as long as we put in the text, here's where the source of these diagrams are, it's fine.
Yeah. I think the actual you can see, like, if you wanted to, like, let's say we were to edit it here, right? You can actually see in the markdown. You can actually see the links to the. Here's a reference to the
Yeah,
SVG.
it's all in GitHub.
Yep,
Right.
it's right there. That's right.
Right. Yeah, I wish it were a little slicker, but baby steps.
I think
So
it's
do we want
great.
to? Sorry, do we want to talk a little bit? So, like Mitch, when you showed that the list of tools and plugins, that's really what it was. So, like when you saw Draw.io, there's a template in Draw.io that basically already has the template for the C4 constructs, right? There's the same thing for OmniGraffle, which is something that I actually use on my Mac. Obviously, there's one for Visio and on, right? This doesn't mean that all those different tools are interoperable with this method. It just means that they're all capable, like they all have templates that result in an image that looks like the SVGs that we've exported. So if we're all going to be working on this, we kind of all, like, for everybody who contributes to these diagrams at this point, we've created these in the Draw.io format. I don't know how well that imports and exports to and from other tooling, essentially, right? So if we're all okay using this tool, then we're all okay using this tool. That's just something else to consider.
Yeah, here's as Adam was talking, I was, if you were looking at the screen, I was showing you basically in Draw.io, you can include the C4. So right here, C4, this is actually the template for these things. And yeah, you can just sort of drag them on, and it's shows you the things. And then there's actually a fancy way. There's a fancy way if we're gonna do this. Is it style or data? Edit data. Yeah. So in fact, these things have fixed fields, so you don't have to just sort of muck about. You could say, a new C4 thing, right? The name is thing E, and so on. It's a software system. Apply, and then all of a sudden that I was editing this one here, so let me get rid of some noise here, right? And so you get this really sort of standardized look and feel and so forth. That's what I believe most of this is about. Most of the diagramming tools templates about.
I hadn't seen that piece before, actually. I've just been
that was something. So there you go.
editing.
I'll do that again. So just for anybody who cares to do, you pull on a piece off a piece. First of all, you get your C4 in this list over here, and there's a way to add these to your I'm just got apps.diagrams.net, by the way, nothing fancy. Adam actually has a note on that. There's actually some issues there, and then you edit the data right there, and you put in your stuff, right? And you hit apply, and then voila, name stuff shows up there. But that has nothing to do with pull request. Now I'm just teaching how to fish.
That's the tooling.
Yep. Adam, maybe you should mention the security concerns.
Yeah, I can. I mean, so a while ago, I think it was a year or two ago, there was a vulnerability or two on some of the servers, one or more of the servers that are used to run what was that? Is app dot diagrams, whatever that was.
Yeah.
The online version of Dryo, right? The only reason I know that is because I went through the software approval process with CIS with my employer, and they said that we couldn't use it. I'm still kind of fighting that fight because it's kind of like all open stuff, and like there's nothing proprietary or secret about it. But in any case, long story short, the most recent penetration test that they were able to get from, I think it's JGraph is the company that puts that in, shows that vulnerable server no longer exists, but it was kind of ambiguous about whether or not the underlying vulnerabilities were fixed. And then the other thing to mention is if you are part of an organization that requires a third-party questionnaire to be filled out, which is what CIS requires, JGraph is probably never going to get to it. Like the way I had to do that was submit it as a GitHub issue, and the answer I got on that was, "We'll get to it if somebody gets to it." So just as an FYI, if you guys are like, because now with SolarWinds and everything, everybody's all about supply chain, which makes some sense. But it's the pendulum, I think, starting to swing too far in one direction as a reaction to that. So
just to chime in. So we have the similar, as you expect, IBM. We have similar restrictions, and technically we're not allowed to use Dryo either. But we are allowed to use. You can download Dryo locally, and we're allowed to use the non-SaaS, and that's what I use. So you can, you can. It's open source. Like you can actually download the open source version. So I don't know if that would help you, Adam, or not, but
it doesn't. I tried. It doesn't.
Yeah, because we have the same like I can't use non-approved SaaS services for anything, but the local version doesn't talk to any remote servers. So.
That's what I discovered as well. I even did, I Wiresharked it and watched it for a while. I did some diagramming work, and it's really nothing.
Yeah. So back to this. Let's see if we can wrap up this the review on this. So we're talking about the tooling stuff. One more thing. Sorry to interrupt, but I want to try and move us along. So those are the changes in the PR. It's not a lot of work. I'd like to be able to commit this and go through another iteration. I wanted to bring up two things. One, very quick note. There's a bunch of stuff in this context diagram for which the three of us really aren't pros at. We're not probably your best reference. I can tell you a little. I mean, I have Tripwire. Stephen and I, we do posture assessment to some extent, or we work in that space, and we can tell you a little bit configuration policy management. And we don't know. I don't know a ton about threat intelligence, sharing systems. I mean, in terms of like how to build one. So, what we tried to do to overcome that limitation is to get people to draw people in to our little C4 diagramming fun meetings. And to review these, and we got Duncan Sparrow. Mr. Sparrow came by, and he gave us a little bit of feedback on this. So we're still, I think, need a little bit more involvement here. So I'm not sure. I'm looking for help in that regard to try and see if we can flesh all of these out and hopefully get to a point where we can actually see the future where we can incorporate all this. So there's one. So let me go through the things, the to-dos, right? So there's that to-do. That's a big one, or big-ish one. Another to-do is to relate this stuff to our use cases. We have a use case document. Some of it's there, some of it's not, so that there's some consistency between using these pictures and looking at your use cases. Another to-do is to... we have a terminology page, and I've been trying to keep the labels on these things and some of the descriptors in place. That terminology page, where is that? Excuse me. Let's see here.
Is that in the GitHub?
Yeah, it's in here.
Yeah.
Terminology.md. Yeah. Right. So making sure that these things match up with the picture things so that there's consistency yet again. So if you're looking at stuff, ideally the terminology page gives you some references. So this gives you like relationships between entities, but a terminology page might refer to other documentation or synonyms or things like that that might be a bit too verbose to fit here. So those are three big things. So help, terminology, and I forgot that. Anyway, there's three things. So
Use cases.
thank you.
Hmm?
So that was one topic. And let me just move to the second one, which is again sort of bigger. I was looking at, so I've got written here, subscribes to posture information, for example, posture information from OpenDXL ontology. So I actually don't. I've done a little bit in the OpenDXL ontology, but I'm looking for posture information in there. And if I go over to, you probably maybe are thinking what I'm thinking, and if you're thinking what I'm thinking, we've got work to do.
Mm-hmm.
If I look in here, and if I look around here, I don't find, let's say in the schema, where was this? I didn't find posture information. Actually, there's a better way to look at this. Bill, where was that? Is it this? It is this. Yeah. I'm looking in here for posture information or anything else that might match my drawings. It's not there. That's probably not a good sign. Either we got the drawings wrong or the DXL ontology is wrong. Well, wrong. One of the two needs to change so that they line up. And
I
that's
can
another
comment a little
tweak.
bit on that.
Yes, please.
Sorry, Mitch. So yeah, I think one of the reasons the posture collection information or posture assessment information isn't in the ontology yet is because that all comes out of the SCAP endpoint data collection work group. He's presently still specifying those things. So I think the idea is as that group comes into OCA to do their prototype implementation, they'll learn more about what all those different interfaces need to look like and should help populate this
Right.
ontology with all of the posture assessment interfaces that would be required for those various components. It
Yeah,
is a lot of work to
I
do.
think
So
you're
you're
right
right.
on, Adam. When and that's some of the follow-on I have is the same conversation. There's a bunch of stuff I'm starting to observe of how things need to work together across some of our technologies, and I pointed a few of them out. We'll talk about them later. But I think you're right. I think this is it's an indicator of someplace we got to work to bring the pieces together. So I completely agree with that.
And that's all I got. That's all we got. I think, Bill, you're pretty quiet. Did you want to chip in here? Or did we cover it?
No, you covered it. Yeah, I was just kind of back channeling Adam of kind of needing to get some hunkering down on some of that OpenDXL ontology stuff and kind of working with the SCAP group as, kind of what he was saying.
Good.
Yeah, there's if I can comment one more thing, like I know we're already halfway through the meeting time and we're probably less than halfway through the topics, but for the SCAP group, we just had an endpoint data collection meeting yesterday, I think it was, and then the week before we had an SCAP in the cloud meeting, and I basically talked a lot about this effort to both of those groups. I shared information about this group to those groups. And I don't like. I asked specifically in the endpoint data collection group, can you go to these pages that Mitch is sharing right now, and please help validate that we got this right? Right.
Good.
We think we got it right, but you need to help validate that this is right because this is really based on the work that you're bringing to OCA. So we're trying to get that done. I think that Bill and I can push on that group and others, or it's an open group, right? So if anybody else wants to join in, we can push on that group, and we have our own ideas about how these interfaces should look, how these components should interact with each other. So we'll keep pushing it forward one way or another. Hopefully it ends up to be SCAP v2 architecture, and in another case, it might not. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've been having conversations with Stephen Bangard and team as well last week, Adam. So I'm trying to we're we're trying to do a bunch of different things to get the communities more connected. So I don't know if you've seen any of that or if he said anything.
I haven't heard of those conversations, and I don't remember Stephen. So Stephen ran both of the meetings I just referenced.
You didn't
I don't
mention it at
remember
all.
him. I don't remember him mentioning it specifically or explicitly at all.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Yeah, I'm also waiting on an email from him that he was supposed to create that talked about this. So okay, um,
Well,
we just
worst
had a
comes to worst.
conversation about it with we just had a conversation about it with Jessica and Dave last Friday. So
Okay. Okay. Well, one way or another, we'll get posture assessment in here, and it's just a whether it's just whether or not it's pushed by those outside of the U.S. government doing SCAP or the people who really care about SCAP. I guess I'll put it that way. I guess we're recording this. I shouldn't say those things, but I mean, I want to see this happen, right? Like I've been wanting to see an ecosystem for posture assessment happen for a really long time. So who does the work and where it happens matters a lot less to me than actually seeing it realized.
yeah, I mean, it has to be. It's a community effort. So
So part of this, I think, Adam, we'll circle around at the end of my call because there is a couple of call to action possibilities, and that this could be under one of them that I laid out. So let's circle on that one. One thing I wanted to ask the group is you've asked for 4 different areas that people can help. Can anybody on this group volunteer for at least one of those actions so we can help this team out?
Time to start drafting.
yeah, I'll take one of the actions, Russ.
Okay.
Where's the do you have the list?
I've written it down. I'll send it out. But one was to review the context diagrams they've written already, make sure that everything's kosher, as they did, especially in the threat intelligence area. I feel they wanted another review on. Relate to our test cases. I know Doug Austin will help us there, but relating what they're doing to the use cases that is also published in the GitHub was a second ask. A third ask was looking at the terminology MD that they've got out there. And the fourth ask was looking at the OpenDXL discussion we just had on posture information.
So on the threat intelligence one, so I'll take that one because I know that domain fairly well. I'll take a look at it, but I think we should also make a proactive reach out to some of the threat intelligence vendors who are members and see if with that very specific ask if we can get some input from.
Yeah, I'll try and do a broad membership wide ask, and I'll try and put these a little more clear.
Put threat intelligence in bold, big bold letters.
We
has to do with threat intelligence,
and we've got some skilled across OCA. We got some decently skilled threat intelligence people. So you're right; that should be a good one. Any other volunteers? Steve, you want to do a draft? You want to take numbers?
You wanted to volunteer, didn't you?
You're number 2. Hey, congratulations. You're going to terminology page. I guess quiet means no other volunteers. Okay,
Well, let me throw this out there. So I know everybody's just reaching for that mute button, unmute button, trying to get their word in. Like, I want to do this. Adam, Bill, and I, we meet usually once a week. It's for an hour. There's some lighthearted joking around, and then we do a little bit of co-editing and sort of try to burn down a list that we keep of the things to work on. So if you're interested, or you know someone that is interested in joining our little C4 diagramming fun, shoot myself or Adam or Bill an email. We're also on the Slack channel as well, so you can reach us there, and I will we'll just keep plugging away at it. If someone would please give me the review thumbs up, maybe that's you, Mr. Warren, and then I'll commit that, and I will start in the interest of small iterations. I'll create yet another branch, part 4, perhaps in Spanish, and then we'll just keep going from there.
Yeah, thanks for the ask. So yeah, I think everything I saw was perfectly fine. Unless anybody had any objections, I think we're okay with merging this in and continuing to iterate like we talked about last year. We're going to iterate almost weekly on this just to keep updating and refining. And what I saw looked great in terms of your next iterations. You guys did an excellent job on. I love the fact you've added a lot of the text and terminology. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and we do not want to let perfect be the enemy of the good here, right? This is all. It's a continuous evolution. So if I don't think we need to try to reach some type of broad consensus for these diagrams. It's kind of like we meet, we collaborate, we get them out, we evolve. People have comments, and feedback. We accept them at any time, right? So we don't have to
it's
hold back.
Public GitHub. You can create an issue for me. I dare you.
Yeah, that's right. Make my day. Yeah, I like it.
And thank you, by the way, Adam and Bill, for spending time with me on this. I appreciate it. So you guys are invaluable.
You're absolutely welcome, but most of the time you're driving a lot anyway, so that's fantastic. It's a good team effort.
Yeah, you guys are doing a great job. I appreciate that as well. Thank you.
Lorinda, were you chiming in? I heard something.
Not me, but
I thought maybe it was
No.
D. I'm not sure.
I was just going to add, things look good. I think on this initiative, I'm more useful for noting what's going on and being the connector to rope in other folks at Cybereason. So just giving you the thumbs up from over here.
Well, excellent. Thanks for doing that. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Is it Adam, Mitch, and Bill? Have you taken the time you need? Okay, great.
Yep.
So let me take the ball. And the good news is just as I'm getting started, Forrest is showing up, which is great. All right. And the reason is what I'm gonna do next is
That drafting thing? We have a candidate.
Yeah, Forrest, right? He doesn't know what he's volunteering for. It's perfect. Yeah. Okay, so the next thing on our agenda, I'm sharing a screen now, is as you guys know, and talk about far from perfect. This is a great example of such a piece of work. This is the first draft of the architecture document. The intent here was to put some background around and words around our architecture, what it is, what the principles are, how the projects relate to the overall architecture. What is our overall architecture? How do the things we're working on relate to that? What are the roles of the technologies we have into that architecture? That's the intent. And I took a first pass at it at the end of last year. And I want to thank Forrest, Adam, and who else did I have? Ladrina. Yeah, thank you guys for being great critics. And I expect a lot of markups here. For the first review, I'd also ask the rest of you to please look at this. There's a lot of holes in it. And part of it was just to get this thing started, just to get the ball rolling. And I want to talk a little bit about what we're trying to do here to see if I can shape the direction of this and make sure I focus on the right things as we evolve the document. So just a real quick conversation on that, and then we'll jump to the last topics. But this document's a long way from going. But just wanted to mention, and Adam and Forrest, now that you're here, you caught a couple things that were true on the way I scoped this out. And Forrest was put it in great words. He says, "Hey, Russ, this looks like a description of the projects we have." And I said, and that's exactly right. And there does need to be more of a overview, what the motivations of the architecture. And I tried to capture some of that in terms of multiple communications across multiple components versus one-to-ones, and the ability for us to componentize some of this stuff. And I had some amount of that in there, and obviously I need a lot more descriptions of these things. So that was the intent. But Adam and Forrest, you guys first commented on, I think the document definitely, and I agree with you, definitely needs more motivational kind of conversation. Why are we doing what we're doing? Why is it better than what we have? I think I agree. And Adam and Forrest, is that kind of the intent of these comments here? Is that angle?
To a degree. Can you guys hear me okay? I'm walking through an airport here.
Okay.
Yeah, to a degree, I think it was. I think maybe it's just some of it's ordering and labeling.
Yeah.
So I mean, the content is all good, but I think it's some of the ordering and labeling to get it
Yep.
a bit more coherent was the main focus. And as the motivation terms and stuff like that, I think we've got some material. We've got plenty of stuff written up. You don't have to redo that as well if you wanted to add some of that stuff. The benefits and such.
Yep. Yep.
Over to Adam.
Yeah, sorry, agreed. Yeah, agreed. I concur. I think the content is good. It's just ordering.
Okay, and I agree with that as well, because I think I put this stuff up here first. I don't know why I did this, and then I have the diagrams later, which doesn't make any sense. But
you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, I guess so. But I started more logically. And this diagram, as you mentioned, Forrest, this is just a placeholder. This is all I had. The intention is to take these wonderful diagrams that Mitch, Adam, and Bill were working on and replace it. Once they get to this level, then I'll replace obviously this with what they're working on. But this is just something I had out there that was in our GitHub. It was the only one that kind of represented the big picture. And the work that Mitch and Adam and Bill have been doing have been very much focused mostly on the posture collection service and stuff over here. Just a piece of the puzzle, which makes 100% sense. But I would like to make our architecture diagram be more the real high level. Again, the pieces of the things of the architecture that are key. How things will work together. I mean, that's what I want to capture. So the intention is to do that, and I could use some help. I'm going to try and take a shot at that this year. So I'm going to take this document and try and go up with it, up a level. And I could certainly use some help with that as, we try and figure that out and then start writing around it. Because what I did learn when I wrote this document, and you see that down here, is I started writing up the parts we had. And I think, as far as you said, the same kind of thing here as well, as, it looks like, you've got a lot of stuff here that's great, but it's not, capturing a lot of information that I think you're right, we ought to capture. But certainly what I tried to do was say, we've got the three projects, and then we've got the related projects like OpenC2 and so forth. And I was trying to at least start to position them to, where do they fit together? And it brought up a number of questions I'm going to talk about later. But, we got to go through the exercise of, making sure the architecture represents the projects and the projects are properly positioned and they have the right level of scope and where they fit with each other. So that's the intent here. And, the only thing I did come up with, which is interesting, is, a lot of our focus seems to be on communications, right? Getting things to talk to each other in the right formats with OpenC2 and OpenDXL. And then the other part I kind of categorize as, I call them common services for lack of a better term, but if you really look at Stick Shifter and you look at the SCAP stuff, it's a lot of dealing with, getting information from resources. They were common there. So maybe we can come up with better terms, but I saw a theme there. There's we have two sets of projects. One's dealing with the communications, both how we set it up with the message bus and what we say on it with OpenC2 and obviously with OpenDXL, and then the query services, how do we get observable information from things? How do we get monitoring information from things? So, when I started writing this, I said, well, there's a couple of categories of some consistency, which is nice to see some themes, but, I got a long way to go with this, with this kind of information. So, got more work to do here, but, just as an observation. But again, please, for those of you who haven't reviewed this, please go in and mark it up. Please review it. There's a lot of possible things we could go with this document. I'm looking for help authoring it. I'm going to take another shot at it, but I'd love helpers on different pieces of this document so we can work, split it up and work on it together and evolve things. But anyway, I just want to give you a status of where I'm at right now. So I'm going to go back into this, take a look at everybody's comments, massage things where I know it needs to be massaged. And I'm probably going to put stuff in the document as placeholders of places where I know we need stuff and I don't have it yet. Okay, I'll stop there for a second. Any comments?
Sounds good, actually. I do have one question for you. How do you prefer the feedback? And I'm sorry if we've asked this before or covered it before. Like, if I see like a sentence and I think it should be changed, do you want me to just change it, or do you want me to comment on it and propose the change?
I prefer you comment on it and post it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Russ, thanks for introducing this, and I especially love the introduction you gave when you were speaking to us just now. I think what you just said is what this document needs right up top. even going back to the recording from 3 minutes ago and saying, hey, these are very conversationally. These are the 2 things that we do or 3 things that we do. And then we'll get into more detail down below. And I think it's setting up all the details that follow that would really help just kick this off. I guess my other question to you would be, who's the audience for this? I mean, as much as the audience is anybody in our field who could benefit from these projects, you know, is there going to be the equivalent of something like 1 page, page and a half, 2 pages at the top where somebody can get that high level executive overview just conversationally? And then, you know, have a little bit more of a break where you dive into what somebody interested in architecture might be more willing to do towards the end. But yeah, I think there's a really good opportunity to set things up and just clarify up top who the document is for and say exactly what you said to us just now. And I think that would really give this a great introduction.
Excellent. Thanks for that feedback. And a couple of my thoughts, anyway. They're not the answers because they're just my thoughts, Regina. On what's this document for? I mean, the whole idea was to be the companion document for the architecture work we've been doing, right? Because the diagrams are great, right? And some of the work we're going to do is awesome. But you know, pulling it together and you know, kind of explaining our OCA, you know, architecture rationale and approach is the idea. Yeah, you know, the other thought of what you said about high level documents, you know, there should be a white paper with it. There should be a solution brief. There should be a, you know, very small 2-page, you know, summary, you know, as companion documents for the different audiences. I think, you know, I almost think this, you know, Ladrina is like a product that we're delivering, you know, which is the architecture. And there's a lot of other audiences that we want to relate to this document. And, you know, we put those types of things together as companions with it. That was the thought.
Okay, great. That also makes a lot more sense. And hearing that is good to know the context. I think also thinking more about the, let's say, the title of the person who'd be reading this. You know, do you want this to be, again, a component and all of those other pieces to be something that the lead architect reads? Do you want this to be something that, you know, what is the role of the person who would be most helped by reading this document? That's my question in setting this up.
Okay, good questions. Good questions. Okay, I'll make note of that. That's good input. Thank you, Regina. And again, my intention of this is to definitely put different versions of this out, and I'm definitely looking for input and criticism and updates because I know there's a lot of places that we need more work.
Russ,
Anything else?
A quick question, Russ. Because I know we had 2 things going on at one point. Just to clear it up in my mind, is this document the same one that we had edited?
No.
Or okay.
No.
That's what I thought. I wanted to double check.
No, the other one was intended more as a white paper for the OCA, and this is more technical. This is more, you know, all about the architecture. So there's 2 different documents. Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. No problem. Okay, so let me share something else then, if you guys are okay with that. Let me get the other guy up here. I got the wrong one. Hold on a second. I love when we have so many windows open. Let me see here. There it is, this guy. Now, this document, I hope, can you guys read this? I know it's awful small. Is it okay? This is an email I sent out when I announced the meeting, if you have that. Okay, so this is, and what the idea of this conversation is to scope, you know, what we want to focus on as a group as we move forward. And so what I put here is, you know, obviously the thoughts I had is obviously to continue to do, you know, what Mitch and Adam and Bill are doing, continue to work the sequence diagrams, and then, you know, bring in the scope of the other projects. You just started working on DXL ontology. That's great. We still got to figure out how stick shifter fits into all this stuff. right? And so, I think that's one action item that's very clear that we want to continue to evolve with. So I thought that was one thing we want to
Hey,
do.
Mr. Warren, one sec.
Yes.
Could folks mute themselves? I'm getting a lot of feedback. It's hard to
Yeah,
hear,
me too.
actually.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. Okay, so I'll just repeat just in case because I had the same problem. Yeah. So the first thing, obviously, is just obviously as a focus of the group, right, is continue to evolve our diagrams. As you were talking about today, which is great, the OpenDXL. We still got to figure out how stick shifter fits into all that stuff. We know that's another thing to do. But that's obviously one thing we want to continue to evolve in our group meetings, and that just seemed obvious to me. I just wanted to write it down. But the second one came up here when I started looking through, some of the things that I'm looking at in terms of how things fit together. And I think I asked Adam this question, or maybe it was Mitch or Bill, I don't remember. But I'm starting to think about, you've got SCAP and it talks to devices. Well, so does stick shifter. When do you use one over the other? It has some ontology, and I know that there's some nice data modeling that's been done. How much of that should we bring into OpenDXL? Should we identify which ones that we want to bring forward? Like you guys just brought forward the posture information, but I remember we had a meeting last year where we went over some of your model stuff, and OpenDXL had a little overlap with it, which is great. That's an opportunity for us to merge and meld them together. But I think there's more there in terms of what work that's already been done that we ought to just kind of formalize and identify as, this belongs over here in the communication of how, SCAP will if use stick shifter or respond to stick shift if that's appropriate. I don't know if it is, but we ought to make an understanding of what the right thing to do is between those two. And then on the ontology side, talk about, where we want these things to pull together so the models are consistent and the same. So we don't end up like we did with the OpenC2 stuff, which was kind of close, but not exactly aligned between the two. And I think that's an idea that, we should work on as we move forward here. And then the other thing I really think is really important, and I'm going to try and do this, but I need more data, is how these projects fit together. I mean, we do have 3 projects. They kind of, we launched with 2, we've added the third, but, I'm still trying to relate them all together. And you can see I took a couple notes here. And again, the stick shifter and the data collection components intrigue me because I'm from the stick shifter side. But, OpenC2 and the OpenDXL and the things you guys are talking about with the posture assessment, and I'm sure there's others.
So, Russ,
there are things there we can identify to work on to start defining, at least at an architecture level. At least architecture level, how, what we want to work together across these environments. And then finally, some of these architecture pieces, you guys are starting to working on threat, but I also want to get endpoint at least into the conversation. And my motivation there is at the end of the day, it'd be nice to define a stream that we can do an end-to-end plug fest between gathering data from something like an endpoint and understanding it from the management sides, with the different components we've identified, and show how all that can take place, from a limited sense, a part of our architecture, just kind of prove it out, kind of like SCAP's trying to do with, with what they've got up to this point. So let me stop there. These are just things I thought about as I was writing the document. Do these make any sense?
Yeah. Russ, is Forrest. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Forrest, I can.
Yeah. So, so you started getting to it, but I think hopefully we can look back to our reference architecture and be able to diagrammatically show how those 3 projects at least fit in that architecture.
Mm-hmm.
Now, exactly how, and then I like your idea of like a plug fest to actually go through and trace a use case all the way through. So, I mean, I think Doug has been developing some of those use cases that might be useful for that.
Yep.
So I would start with just how they diagrammatically, relate to your architecture. Then we can show in a conceptual way how they relate to the use case. And then the next step could be that plug fest that you talked about and demonstrate actually, with some real a real example, how we would go all the way from an endpoint to a SOAR or something like you said. So it's probably like a 3-step process. Make sense? Over?
Yes, it does to me. Okay. Any other comments? I'm with you, Forrest, 100%. I think that makes sense to do a 3-stage
I think just to comment on the last item there, I think that relate the stick shifter to the SACM data. I think that's an ask we can give the stick shifter team.
Okay.
So let me go and attempt that.
Great. That'd be great. Because I know I'm going to ask the OpenDXL team to start engaging us with specifically the discussion of the posture collection.
I see some folks might be dropping. So just before we wrap, the other item I wanted to very quickly just raise here is that, and I raised it on Slack, got nothing but positive comments, but just so everyone's aware. So we've been recording these sessions and we put them all on GitHub, so they're all public, which is great. But I would like to actually pursue uploading all of our recordings to our OCA YouTube channel. There's another group that I'm involved in that does this, and I find it just increases the visibility of the organization tremendously and what's happening. Just because, it just makes it easier to find. People can subscribe to YouTube. A lot of people do that. I do. I follow lots of them. So, I just wanted to let people know, I wanted to let people know, I hope no one has a problem with that. We're already posting all this stuff in public, so it really doesn't matter from a visibility perspective, but I think it's a good thing for the organization. So anyone have any thoughts or comments on that?
I have no objection. I think it's actually a good idea. It just makes me want to be more careful about what I say and how I say it, because it's more broadcasted now, right?
That's right. Yeah, be a little more careful, right? But yeah, I'm all for the visibility part, but you're right, Adam. We got to be careful what we say.
Okay, I'll talk to, I think the logistics with that, I need to talk with Oasis, Jory, and find out, because I don't even know. Right now, we don't have access to the account, so I don't know how. Actually, I see D's here. I don't know if. Are you there, D? Maybe she didn't hear me. It doesn't matter. I got to reach out to Oasis to find out how we would do that. But anyway.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, she's coming off mute.
Hey.
Yeah, I don't think there'd be any problem with it. We'll talk to Jory. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see any issue with it. We just have to do the logistics of it. But you're right. I mean, we never know who's going to learn just from doing that and then decide that they want to get involved.
Yeah, let's talk to Jory, because I sent Russ a link of this other group I'm involved with that does that, just so she could see. I find it's just a way better place to put the videos.
So, certainly a lot more accessible and visible than we got. Yeah.
Then they'll feel more comfortable, coming to meetings and attend, because they won't feel like they're so far behind.
Exactly. It just lets more people be more aware of what's been happening.
Good.
Sounds great. I think we're all good with it. Okay, everyone, thanks so much. We have a meeting every 2 weeks now, so the cadence should be reestablished. I'll send the notes out, and the recording will be posted probably tomorrow. And thanks to everybody for your work, and appreciate your attention.
Thanks, everybody.
Good day.
Thanks.
Take care, man. Yeah, thank you. Cheers.
Bye.
Cheers.
See you.